We've now got the ability to show a spinner to the user whenever they start trying to authenticate, but we still have to make sure that once the request is complete, be it in success or failure, we clear out the spinner. We can do this by adding some more cases onto our two authentication requests. So both the sign in with email and password and the create user with email and password as well. We currently have a catch statement on both, which handles the fail case, but we can also add on a .then statement to each of them as well. So I can add on a .then, and any function that I pass to this .then right here will be executed only if the user successfully signs in with the email and password. So inside of a fat arrow function or just some type of function that we pass to this .then statement, we can add in our logic to say, hey, we need to clear out the spinner or whatever else we might need to do. I think that this block of code right here is starting to get kind of laborious to read. There's really a lot of logic in here, a lot of lines. So I'm going to make a separate helper method called onLoginSuccess to handle the case in which the user successfully signs in. So inside of onLoginSuccess, there's going to be a couple things that we're going to want to do. Number one, we'll want to clear out any error messages that exist on the screen. Number two, I think that we'll want to reflect a loading of false here because, hey, we just successfully logged in, we're not loading anymore. And then numbers 3 and 4, we probably also want to kind of clean out the form, right? Like once you successfully log in, we don't need to show you your email and password in there anymore. So I think that we'll want to reset our state there as well. So inside of onLoginSuccess, whenever we successfully log in the user, we're going to update our state object. And we're going to basically touch every single state property that we have right now. So I'm going to give myself a new line for a couple different properties. First, I want to zero out the email and the password. So I'm going to reset the email and the password to an empty string. This is also part of the beauty in the approach we took for handling our inputs right here. Remember, by using state to track the value of the inputs. If we want to change the value of the inputs, we can just call setState with a new string and poof, the inputs values will be instantly cleared out for us. Next, we will also say that this thing is no longer loading anymore. So no need to show the spinner. We can hide the spinner to let the user know request complete. And then finally, if there's any error on the screen for any reason whatsoever, we will zero it out by passing an error of empty string. This error message right here is probably a little bit unnecessary just because we are already clearing out the error message before we make the request. And the only case in which a user could get another error message on the screen is by failing the login. So, perhaps it's a little bit overkill right here. Nonetheless, I think that if we ever start doing some client-side validation of the email and password, then perhaps this would make a little bit more sense. Okay, so this is our onLoginSuccess case. So now we can say that whenever a user makes this request, whenever they try to sign in with their email and password, if they succeed, again, any function that we pass to this .then case right here will be automatically called. So we will reference this .onLoginSuccess. And now it's time for everybody's favorite part. Because this is a function that we are passing off to a promise that is going to be invoked at some time in the future, and we don't know the context that it will be called with, we have to bind the context to this like so. Do make sure that you want to make sure you do not have a set of parentheses after onLoginSuccess. Okay, we want to have just onLoginSuccess and then bind this. We want to make sure that we also handle this onLoginSuccess case when a user successfully creates a user with email and password as well. So in this case as well, on this second request, we will also chain on a .then with this .onLoginSuccess bind this. All right, so I know this is a little bit of a confusing block of code. We're going to do one last thing. We're going to refactor out this catch case to a separate helper function as well, which is just going to make this thing a little bit more legible. So I want to extract this fat arrow function right here to a helper method. So I'll add on another method, onLoginFail, And inside of here, we will set the error message, and we will also stop the spinner because, hey, the request just failed. I now need to allow the user to put in a new email and password and then let them attempt to log in again. And if they're going to attempt to log in again, we need to show them the button, of course. So we'll call this .setState. And I keep getting that gosh darn error message. We'll give it an error of authentication failed. And we'll set loading to false because, hey, we're not loading anymore. And then inside of our Firebase call, on the catch that is lined up with the create user with email and password, I'm going to remove that federal function and instead call this.onLoginFail bind this, like so. Okay, so let's do a quick review of where we're at. When a user enters an email and password, we will attempt to sign them in. If they successfully sign in, we will immediately call onLoginSuccess. That will clear out the form, it will hide the spinner, and it will also clear any pending error messages. If the user enters a correct email, like an email that exists, but a wrong password, they will enter this catch case. So in this case, we will attempt to create a brand new account. So a brand new email, brand new password. If that succeeds, then we'll consider the user to be logged in and we will run onLoginSuccess. But if also that request fails, if they enter a valid email but an incorrect password, then we will call onLoginFail. That will show the error message. It will also hide the spinner. Okay, so we got a couple very distinct routes to change our state here. Basically, you are either in the success case or the fail case, one or the other. I think that we're at a good point to do a test now. So I'm going to flip open to my simulator. And I think we'll start by adding a valid email, test@test.com, but a bad password. So I'll just put in 12345. So now when I click login, I get the spinner and then the authentication failed message, which is exactly what I want. But if I put in the correct password, which for me is password, I can sign in. And this is really taking a long time to do that sign in. And boom, we're back to a zeroed out form. So no error message and the email and the password got cleared. So this right here is a little bit startling to see, like, okay, I signed in, why did this form just clear itself out? But really the idea here is that once we sign our user in, we should no longer see the form at all. Instead, we should see like some other content, like some content that a user would normally see when they are signed into our application. So we're in a good spot here. I think that the form is behaving as we expect it to, but we still have to figure out, like, okay, once a user is logged in, what happens? Like, what's the point of signing into our app? We need to show some other content on the screen. So how do we figure out when a user is signed in, and how do we show some different content on the screen? So let's take care of those challenges in the next section.